This is a topic I've covered before a long time ago, but my opinions have since changed, and I think I now have more I'd like to say and elaborate on, so I'm going to be talking about closed species today. If you don't know what closed species are, I'll briefly explain the concept right now. Closed species are a popular concept in the art community, as well as a frequently discussed topic. Basically, it's when someone creates their own species, but restricts access to who can create characters of this species. A species is closed when the general public isn't allowed to make their own character of the species, and either has to buy an MYO, which stands for Make Your Own, buy an official design for sale, or obtain an MYO in some way regulated and improved by the person or the people who own that species. People who obtain MYOs fraudulently or make characters without permission to do so usually get blacklisted or receive some other form of punishment. Being blacklisted means you're added to a public or private list of people who obtained characters without permission, and you won't be able to interact with the community again. To explain it in a way that might be easier to visualize, it's like if I came up with a concept of fire cats, cats made out of fire, and I made a community around these fire cats by selling MYOs and official fire cat designs and hosting events where MYOs and art will be raffled off. This topic is something that is generally disagreed upon in the art community. On one hand, people think that closed species are a really fun concept that has the potential to make really active and engaged communities, and on the other, people feel like it is immoral to restrict access to being able to utilize a design concept, especially ones that are deemed unoriginal or not very unique. Either one of these arguments may resonate with you more at a glance, but it gets more complicated when you factor in other things, like how original is original enough for a closed species to be okay? Or are closed species owners selling more than just the concept itself with MYOs when they include the lore of the species and the community-only events that will be hosted? Or if you were to consider that since the art community has been around since the beginning of the internet, chances are even if you came up with an idea entirely on your own, people have probably done something similar already, and will continue to do so even if they've never even heard of your closed species before. So is it fair to punish them or hound after them if they didn't actually do anything wrong and just had the same idea? But how can you prove that they just had the same idea or that they stole it from you? When you consider these questions, it gets more and more confusing as to which side of the debate makes more sense. I personally believe that it ultimately depends on the behaviors of specific closed species owners and their moderators. There are closed species that I think have really cool communities and that I have even engaged with myself, and then there are closed species that I feel are incredibly disrespectful and irritating. I think closed species are okay, so long as they don't go out of their way to harass anyone who makes something, remotely similar. Going back to another point I brought up earlier, a lot of people dislike closed species because they're not very original. And I agree, some closed species are very straightforward combinations between two widely used concepts, and they aren't some revelation no one has seen before. But that doesn't mean every individual design that is made or sold in that species are unoriginal. I've seen incredibly well-designed characters that are a part of closed species, and would have bought them whether they were in that closed species or not. And the added stuff that comes with buying or obtaining a closed species design makes the design inherently more valuable. That community that you become a part with is sometimes a lot of fun. Another point I see brought up a lot against closed species is that you shouldn't have to pay to be a part of that community, that it should be open to everyone. And what I say to that is, that's a very silly argument if you think about it. That's like saying all conventions should allow free entry because nobody should have to pay to be a part of that community. Yeah, in an ideal world, that'd be great, but conventions often need to sell tickets so that they can pay their employees and maintain their facilities. The same thing kind of goes for closed species. A lot of closed species owners and admins put so much effort and time into crafting these communities and hosting these events and making and selling related products. They may want something out of putting that many hours of work into their passion project, and that's absolutely fair in my opinion. To assume that all closed species owners have some form of malicious intent behind what they're doing feels unfair to me. I would go as far to say that a majority of closed species owners just really love the concept they came up with, and it makes them happy to build a community around it and make sheets of info about how that species works and what its lore is. There are, however, examples of closed species that are very obnoxious, trying to gatekeep their idea from the art community and sending them and their admins after anyone with anything remotely similar. But honestly, I feel like that just doesn't happen a lot, and there are a lot of closed species who don't behave like this at all, and hatred towards them feels unwarranted if they're not doing these types of things, or not doing these types of things intentionally. What I mean by that is sometimes harassment like this is discouraged and against the rules in closed species, yet some members of the species just do so anyways, and the owner of the species was never even aware. Well, yes, they do have some responsibility for the ongoings of their community. A lot of them do their best to resolve situations like this once it's made aware to them. Sometimes the owners are just genuinely unaware of what's happening. Is that always the case? No. but it very well could be, and I think it's a possibility that should be considered. I also feel like sometimes people on the opposite side do some things that are just unnecessary. People who intentionally make a design from a close species and flaunt it to the world are being, in my opinion, rude. While getting inspired from a close species or just having the same idea without even knowing isn't really an issue, when you're intentionally bringing these designers down, it makes you look like a bit of a dick. What do I mean by that? I have had very mixed opinions on this specific species over time. Let's say I stumbled upon this species and thought, hey, it'd be really cool to make a coyote that's half made out of water and half made out of fire. I think I'm gonna go do that now. This is perfectly okay in my opinion. This is inspiration, and water dogs don't inherently own elemental dogs. Chances are they won't care if you do this, and if they do, then you're in the right in that situation. But let's say it went like this instead. Hey, that species looks dumb and unoriginal. I'm gonna leave a hate comment, make an anti-water dog DeviantArt group, harass random people who happen to own water dog designs, and intentionally make and sell 6 water dog designs of my own, while keeping the water dog name attached to them and calling them water dogs in the description because I think it'd be really funny. This, I feel like, is kind of asshole behavior. This is bringing other artists and designers down. This doesn't accomplish anything. This is just intentionally antagonizing people, many of which did nothing wrong. There's nothing stopping you from making designs that are half dog, half water without antagonizing that species in particular. My example of a very good and well-executed closed species is Shuppies, which are created and managed by Bunkins on Twitter, whose name is spelled with an L in place of an I. The actual concept behind Shuppies is incredibly simple. They're shark dogs. Shuppies aren't exactly a closed species, but rather a semi-closed species. Anyone can make a common Shuppie, meaning a Shuppie with any combination of common Shuppie traits. With a higher tier MYO, like rare MYOs or legendary MYOs, you can make more unique Shuppies, where their originality begins to shine. These MYOs aren't sold for monetary value either. They are usually obtained for free. They are just less commonly given away. The species owner sometimes gives away legendary MYOs just for participating or being a part of events. So if you're active in the Shuppie or Connies community, you'll probably get a legendary MYO sooner or later. I'm sitting at a pile of them right now that I really need to start using, but I just keep forgetting. Very lovely designs are occasionally given away or raffled off in events. Sometimes adopts are put up for sale, and these are pre-made designs. Here's one that I bought during a Christmas event. He's super cool, I love him. Another really cool thing about Shuppies is that they really don't care if you make shark puppies and acknowledge that the concept itself isn't very unique. If you make a Shuppie-inspired design that isn't actually a Shuppie, you won't get in trouble for that. The reason why I love Shuppies and species like Shuppies are because they kind of eliminate a lot of the problems that arise with some close species, while maintaining the fun part of having communities in this style. There are more problematic species that do exist, however, and I honestly disagree with a lot of their practices. I think what a lot of close species owners do not understand is that there are some things that you just can't own. In the case of the example Firecat species, if I were to harass anyone who made something with a similar idea behind it that didn't pay me first, that'd be incredibly unfair. Firecats have existed long before I coined them. They've been done before, and cats are literally existing species that exist in the world, and I can't really own that. And again, bringing up the complication from earlier, I can't prove that someone was inspired from me anyways. And even if they were, who cares really? Art as a concept is all about inspiration and referencing. Everyone who has drawn has referenced off of something, be it another artist or just nature itself. To expect payment when someone gets mildly inspired by something you did is a bit ridiculous. So if you're confused about my stance, I'd like to leave it at I have mixed opinions. I don't want to say I'm for nor against closed species because it really depends on a lot of factors. If you pointed to a specific species and asked me, hey, what are your opinions on that one? I'd be able to give you a more specific answer. But when it comes to the concept in general, I feel like it just really depends on how that species in particular is executed. If you want to be left with something, I just like to say that harassment on either side is just usually not okay. So what are your thoughts and experiences with closed species? Tell me about them. I'm sorry this is such a messy and disorganized video. I just kind of splurged my thoughts all at once and I'm hesitant towards posting a specific opinion like I hate closed species or I like closed species, because there will always be people who will take that at first glance and post an angry comment without listening to what I have to say first, and I don't really fully align with either perspective either. But yeah, thanks for watching and I'll see you guys next time.